Volume 1, Creation Myth. In the fifth life, you may never think that the land under our feet has already died, for in the shadows of the great temple, the Aztec priests whispered a secret that would send shivers down every listener. What we see today, the sun, the moon, the mountains, and even human beings themselves, in the ancient days without written record, the first four civilizations were in the midst of the mysterious imbalance. There is no trace left in the ashes, only the epic handed down orally by the sacrifices, which records the solemn and stirring demise. Once the nourishment of the god, everything will return to the original chaos, and there will be no day of work. This is not an illusory prophecy, not a lie used by the priests to frighten the people. It is the underlying fear engraved in the bone. Them hear the big warning from childhood. It also makes them their whole life desperately that they dare not slacken at all. This debt begins with the creation of the gods and ends with every moment of the world's existence. At the beginning of chaos, heaven and earth did no light, no shade. Even the gods crouched in the core of chaos for millions. The giant Tlaltecuhtli woke up. His whole body was chaotic. His hair was as tangled as withered grass, and his blood was as turbulent as a surging river. Every breath sets off a storm, and he wantonly wandered, and wherever he passed, even the sleeping gods were forced to wake up, and the chaotic order was completely broken. In order to open up a world where the living beings and the gods can settle down with the snake Tezcatli, Boca resolute aside the estrangement between into two towering serpents, clinging to the body of the giant. The troll fought back, its tusks tearing the scale, its venom drenching the weapon. The two gods endured great pain, exhausted their life's power, and finally tore the troll in half. With their last ounce of strength, they threw the upper body of the troll into the sky and turned it into the... It carries the possibility of light to the world with its stars and tramples the lower body under its, turning it into a thick earth. Give birth to vegetation and light, and bring the hope of vitality to the world. This is the embryonic form, the world, left by the gods to this land. But it also buries the hidden danger, most of the divine power of the gods, and the balance of the world is maintained by divine power. Once the divine power, destruction will come as scheduled. The world's first life of the jaguar. It was the time of Tezcatli, the god of smoke mirrors, who turned into a black sun, hung in the sky, and could extremely tyrannical oppression. Over time, the resentment of the earth, strength, and awakened, the giant tiger roared out of the surface, devouring the black sun and the human being. The survivors were transformed into jaguars by the gods. Seclusion in the deep mountains, and from then on, the first world fell silent. In the tearing, the gods did not give up, but stepped forward with the serpent god, Kez, into the second sun, opening the era of strong wind. This era, with good weather, human beings have learned and to live in symbiosis with nature. They even began to build simple altars to the gentle sun god. But the good times, and the snake god had lost most of his divine power, and it was difficult for him to support the operation of the sun. Above the sky, the wind suddenly swept, mountains and rivers collapsed. Rivers changed their course high into the sky. Eventually, he turned into a monkey and clung to the cliff to avoid the catastrophe, and the god, watching the world he guards fall again. He is grief-stricken, but he can only wait for the next miracle of rebirth. When the wind cleared and the second sun went out, the earth was once again desolate. The third sun, ruled by the rain god Tlaloc, is known as the Tlaloc mercifully sent down the rain to nourish the earth, and human beings multiply, simple tribes, in awe of the god who brings life. But the jealousy of the smoke god broke the balance again, and he secretly bewitched the gods and disturbed. Let the sky fall is no longer rain, but bare. The burning rain, Tlaloc, had tried desperately to make, but was unable to save the day. Can only watch the rain into life and eventually self-destructive. The villages devoured by the rain of fire, the vegetation, the rivers dried up, the earth cracked, and were eventually transformed into birds, fly to the sky, looking for the pure land without. In the third round, the world is reduced to ashes, and in the fourth round, the sun returns to the water god and Li Kuei is the flood era. The god of water absorbs the water, heaven, and earth, which nourishes the broken earth. Man took root again and learned to live near the fishing for a living, but this time the water god. He felt pity for the destruction of the first three and the excessive nourishment. The earth led to the gushing of groundwater and the flooding of mount, devouring the village. Human beings were besieged by and eventually the gods turned the bottom of the water to escape. When the flood receded and the fourth sank to the bottom of the sea, the world returned to the beginning of chaos. Only the boundless water and darkness were left, and the destruction was more and more tragic. The divine power of the gods is also exhausted. They all know that the next time there is not enough divine power. The fifth time is the only chance. 4 times of rebirth. The gods are already exhausted, and the gods are exhausted in the process of restarting the world. Even the serpent god and the smoke god, who used to be able to have gradually lost their former majesty. They gathered on the sacred mountain of Teotihuacan. This mountain is a sacred place left by the god. The top of the mountain is flat, overlooking the whole new land. The gods sat around a burning bonfire, the light of which reflected their haggard faces, and the air was filled with They all know, in their hearts, that I want to open the 5th round of the world. The darkness disappeared. There must be a priest who is willing to jump into the bonfire, his own spirit, hold the light of the world with the power of the spirit. This is a mortal sacrifice. No glory, no reward, only endless death. Not even a fragment of the soul can be. From then on, completely disappeared in the chaos. The gods were silent, and no one was willing to take the initiative to come. Everyone wanted to hold on to their remaining divine power. Keep your traces between heaven and earth. The gods looked at each other, and 3 times the richest god, Quetzalcoatl, went to the burning flames. After all, he stroked the gold ornaments on his body and looked at the subordinate territory he ruled. The courage of cowardice. He is not greedy for glory, but does not want his divine power to disappear. Is when the gods despair and think that the world will sink into darkness forever. A thin figure slowly walked of the ranks of the gods. He was Nana Vatel, a fighting god, a weak body who had never been taken seriously by the gods on weekdays, and did not even have his own temple, but looked at the silent earth, whispered a sentence that the world should not be attributed. His eyes were firm, his mouth was full of prayers, and he approached the bonfire, jumped into a dazzling sun in the sky, dispelling the darkness. But the new sun did not turn. It hangs in the sky, cold and silent, unable to bring warmth and vitality to. Even the meaning of chaos remains in the wind. The gods suddenly realized that not enough to make the sun work. They must pay a heavier price, nourish the spirit of the sun with their own blood, and continue to right the vitality of the world. So the gods pulled out their obsidian knives. The old god raised his arm, trembling. The young god's eyes were firm, and the warm blood dripped. 1 drop, 2 drops. Countless drops of blood gathered into a stream, flowing along the cracks in the sky, soaking the cold sun. When the last magical blood was spilled, their spirits and the sun finally turned slow. Warm light sprinkled the earth. Vegetation sprouted again. Rivers flowed again, and the world finally ushered in the earthquake era we live in today is guarded by the god of war. The gods exchanged their own death and blood of the fifth world. It also laid the foundation, the emergence at that time. Although the earth had recovered, it was empty and lonely, without human breath, the sacrifice of the meaning of inheritance. So he volunteered with the snake god Quasar. Along with his twin brother Sorat, he went to the underworld of Mictlan to retrieve the remains of the humans. The underworld was dark, full of thorns, and the two brothers fought bloody battles, exhausting their remaining before they were able to return to the world with their Quetzalcoatl looked at the broken bone, his heart full of compassion, and he bit his wrist. These bones are nourished little by little with their own remaining blood, and the bones gradually recover, grow skin, and give birth into today's human beings. It is also from this that human beings owe a debt to the gods that cannot be repaid. This debt is not a shackle, but the survival qualification of the gods. The gods created human with blood, so human beings must worship the gods with their own blood. The Aztecs believed the fate of the fifth world lay in the contract between humans and the god, and that once the blood offering was interrupted, the sun will go out, the earth will shake, and the world will be destroyed for the fifth time. This time, there is no more sacrifice of the god, no more chance to do it again. So they built great temples, with white stone as the base, obsidian as the main. The temple soared into the clouds and reached the sky, become a bridge between human beings and God. They held grand sacrificial ceremonies, each of which was presided over by the highest sacrifice, dressed in costumes and holding sacrifice around the altar of the temple. He knelt down and prayed of the gods and the continued operation of the sun. They sent their bravest warriors not to plunder wealth, not to expand territory of war. These prisoners of war will be used as sacrifices to repay the owed by mankind with their own. At the sacrificial, the priest held a sharp obsidian with a solemn cut open the chest of the take out the heart that is still beating and hold it high to the sun. Let the blood flow along the lines of the altar. And this is not barbarity, not cruelty. To maintain the survival of the world in their eyes is to repay the pious act of the gods. In the Aztec mind, every sacrifice was a symbiosis. Human beings nourish, and the gods guard human beings with divine, guarding the last chance of life. Every sacrificial heart is a witness to a covenant. This contract can be down from generation to generation, the bones of every Aztec, and it is deeply imprinted from the moment a child is sensible. When night fell, and darkness fell over the land, Aztec priests to the top of the great temple. There was a huge star carved in stone, corresponding to the sky. The priests wore black cheongzams, looking up at the stars, carefully observing the movement of the star, recording the rise and fall, praying that the sun will rise as scheduled the next day. Pray that the world will continue to maintain balance. They know that what they guard is not only a tribe, a civilization, but also the last chance of the world. It is the vitality of the gods in exchange for their blood. They dare not slacken at all. Even if the cold wind is biting, even if the stars are weak and they always stick to the altar, day after day, year after. Ordinary Aztecs, in the morning, will go out of their homes and kneel down, offer your most pious prayers. Every time the harvest was, the fullest grain was offered as a sacrifice to the gods. Looking back at this ancient myth, we may not be able to understand their obsession with blood sacrifice, cannot identify with their cruel way of sacrifice, but can read the deep bone marrow of fear and fear of the destruction of the fear of the sacrifice of the gods. adherence to the survival, adherence to the contract with the god. Stick to the hard-won last life. We may not be able to understand the obsession of all traps and empathize with their fears and their bone, but I can read the deep awe of the Aztecs. They use their lifetime perseverance to repay the gods and guard the last life with extreme piety. Continue the spark of civilization down from generation to generation. And this awe of the world, this adherence to vitality, has never been an ancient legend, not a dust-laden past. It is the background of the continuation of human civilization and an indispensable. Who can be sure that the world we live in today is not the last chance? Who can guarantee that we will not repeat the mistakes of the first four? But at least we can keep that awe of life and nature, and not let chaos come back. Don't let the sacrifice of the gods be in our hands. The myth of the Aztecs has long come to an end, but the awe and perseverance they left behind are always worth looking back and